Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Publish Drive Customer Success webinar, and it's great to see you here. I'm going to give everyone a second to join before we begin. I do apologize. I have a bit of a cold, so please bear with me. Hopefully, my voice is going to do fine for the rest of the webinar today. I can see that people are still joining. Welcome, everyone. And it's great to see a lot of people joining. So while we give everyone a moment to join, I just wanted to say a couple of things that are not directly related to our topic today. So first of all, everyone who has subscribed, regardless of whether they have joined, will receive a recording of the webinar. So even if you drop off, you're not able to join or to stay for the entire duration, you will still receive a recording of the webinar. You can feel free to, while we're talking, you can feel free to drop any questions you might have in the chat, and then I will be making periodical breaks to make sure that I cover everything. I see that there are some issues with the video. Let me know if you were able to figure it out. Everything works on our end. So you should be able to see the presentation, and okay, I received confirmation from some others that they're seeing it okay. So it is probably just a connection thing. William is saying that he can't stay for the whole thing, work and all that. I completely hear you. I can absolutely relate to that. So as I said, you will be receiving the recordings. Even those who were not able, who just signed up, but were unable to join, will be receiving the recording, so you can see it at your own when you have time. If you're not already following Publish Drive on YouTube, feel free to look into that as well. I see that some people are having issues with the buffering. I'm not sure if there is something specific because everything is working on our end. I can give it a minute, but there really shouldn't be any issues. So our topic today is going to be metadata. And we are going to talk about options for the biggest growth in publishing, because this is something that is definitely affecting your visibility and your reach. So specifically, we're going to be talking about metadata, what it is, why it's important, and how it affects visibility and also workflow. So why are we discussing this? Because metadata is extremely significant when it comes to your book being discovered. So if your metadata is messy, inconsistent, and your workflow is not predefined, your books are going to have less chances to be discovered. This is why we're going to discuss what metadata is, why it's important, and how the metadata, the way that you configure metadata, can help putting your book in front of the right audience. So metadata is everything that connects your book to retailers, to search engines, and to recommendation algorithms. Metadata itself includes things like title, subtitles, keyword, categories, description, author name. So this is the data. We're going to go through individual aspects from individual items as we go along. But this is the data that retailers use to decide where your book is going to appear. This is not related to your book format. This goes to all this speaks to all the formats. This is the key to how the industry works. So it is, and when I say that, I mean that metadata is one of the main levers that determines discoverability for your book. This is because your books are not randomly being placed by the stores. Stores are relying on metadata signals to decide where your book appears, when it appears, and to whom it appears. So the better metadata, better visibility, better discoverability for your book. Sometimes metadata is not something that you focus on. You might focus on different aspects, on the cover, on the marketing, and don't get me wrong, they are important. But strong metadata is just as important in terms of increasing visibility and helping platforms properly index and recommend your books. And this is incredibly important because the publishing industry worldwide, across all the languages, is booming. We are seeing millions of titles. And in order for you to get your books sold, and this is something that we want to help you with, is to make your books visible to the right audience. So how does this happen, and why is metadata so important? So going back to why the metadata is so important. First of all, it engages the readers. So metadata is the only information that readers have before they buy your book if they're seeing it for the first time at the store. So you can spend hundreds of dollars on your book design, on the book description, advertising. Like I said, very important. But if your metadata is well optimized, it is going to increase visibility for all of your books. So, as I said, you want to make sure that it helps books being discovered. Your book needs to show up in front of the real audience, in front of the intended audience. That's going obviously to differ based on your book genre, on whether it's fiction, nonfiction, but you know that your book has its own audience. Accurate metadata is going to help search engines rank your book higher, and it's going to help with the in-store search. So one thing that you want to be mindful of in one aspect is going to be searching or identifying the most representative keywords to use in your book description. So this is one of the best ways your readers can find you. So we're going to, again, go back to each individual, but you're going to be looking at your keywords, your book description. You want to make sure that you have the right price in terms that you want to make sure that you stay competitive. Creating book metadata can be tricky, and some authors might struggle to balance their artistic vision with keywords and categories. Also, when you're keeping up with all the industry changes, and there are always changes, as you know, it takes time and research. We do, and by that I mean Publish Drive, we have a tool, the Publishing Assistant, that we have already talked about, that helps authors and publishers take care of the technical part of the book publishing. So it includes it gives you the opportunity to use it to get recommendations for your metadata. Essentially, if metadata is not something that you want to go very deep into yourself, you can use Publishing Assistant that is incorporated in our platform and upload your manuscript there. Then it would use the AI to analyze your book, so its contents, and then you would receive suggestions for the title, subtitles, series name if applicable, categories, keywords, and even pricing. So obviously this is not something that's set in stone. You can reject it completely. you can modify it in any way. So this is a tool that you can use for metadata creation. I think we will discuss this tool more in depth in one of our upcoming webinars. So if this is something you're interested in, you can find more information in our help center, and we will be sharing we share the information about all the upcoming webinars up front. You're more than welcome to use this tool. I hope you find it useful, but it's absolutely not mandatory. So you can do the entire metadata creation by yourself. So we are going to go into the key parts and what you want to be mindful of when you are creating and uploading your metadata. So first thing, obviously, is the title. So of course, entering your title is an obvious requirement, right? There is one thing, and obviously it is going to be primarily artistic decision for an author. That being said, you can always consider how the title alone is able to catch your reader's attention. So since this is one of the items that is being scanned and used to show your book to both title and subtitle, to show your book to the relevant audiences, you might want to keep in mind that including relevant keywords into the organic part of your title and subtitle is going to help. Not all books need subtitles, but if your book does have a subtitle, it should be able to explain to the reader what the book is about. When you're deciding on a subtitle, I would recommend you include keywords to help with the discoverability of your book. So how to do this? You can think about how your readers search for a topic or a book like yours, and then use some of those terms in your subtitles. So optimizing your subtitle to match Google and Amazon search engines is recommended. It will help you increase sales. As I said, book title, subtitle are going to be relevant for sure, but there are others that we definitely want to be mindful of. So let us go to the author. Obviously, nonfiction writers should publish with the name that is affiliated with the research or discovery. So when it comes to fiction, to work of fiction, the authors may list their pen names, and that is perfectly fine. That's absolutely that nothing special changes about that. You do want to make sure that you also add your contributors. There is a question about subtitles, so I'm just going to read that first before we continue with discussing contributors. I have a question about the subtitle. In my book cover, both the series title and book title are mentioned. When I fill the metadata, can I leave the subtitle blank? Oh, sorry. So if there is no subtitle, yeah, you can absolutely leave it blank. So if there is no subtitle, that's perfectly fine. You will just include your title and the series title. Okay, going back to the contributors. So you do want to make sure that all the contributors who have been part of your book creation process are included. So that includes co-authors, editor, forward writer, illustrator, or designer or photographer, depending on what type of content you have. If we're talking about the audiobook, a narrator for sure, translator, if relevant. So I would make sure that all of them are included. For example, editor is not necessarily always mentioned in the metadata, except for anthologies or compilations. But if the editor is a person that readers may be searching for, their name is definitely worth mentioning, and that is going to increase your discoverability. So you want to make sure that all the contributors are included. Okay, moving on to a description where we get where things get very, very serious. So when you're creating your description, and I have received questions about whether it's mandatory. First of all, it is mandatory. It has to be at least 150 words, 150 letters. I'm not sure. But you're not creating it just for the readers. You are also creating it for algorithms. So on one hand, obviously, your readers are going to see the book description and get the main idea of the book. And clearly, it should be written in a way that intrigues them to want to read more. On the other hand, I would recommend adjusting book descriptions to feature enough keywords to allow algorithms to match the book to various individual searches that are performed by readers. That doesn't mean that you have to completely rewrite your description. But you want to be mindful that you want to include some of the keywords to allow algorithms to see them and use them to recommend them, and rather make them more visible to your users. So now, keywords are not directly visible to the readers. They were included in the book's description to guide the algorithm specifically into matching the text to the reader's requests. So when you're deciding which keyword to include, you want to think of your readers. So what genres, what keywords would you personally use to search for a book like yours? So in case you don't know exactly what you're looking for, but what they're looking for, but they have like an idea regarding the theme, maybe it's going to be like summer romance in Italy, or independent single moms, or how to increase productivity while working from home. Write your book's description with such keywords to boost your book's discoverability. Also, you can use Google, Amazon, Bing, and sites like that to get keywords idea by starting to type your search term into the search bar, and you will get suggestions before you finish typing. See what it suggests. So that is going to give you an idea into what others are searching for. There is going to be quite a lot of investigation involved when you are creating your keywords. Which brings me to our categories. So, of course, book categorization is essential. Why is it essential? Because you want the users who are going to look for specific types of book, they're going to look at those specific categories, right? They're not going to look at all the books on Amazon or all the books on Apple Pay. They're going to search for specific genres. You want to make sure that your book is there when they go looking. So when you're planning your categories, you want to start with not describing your book, but with the search intent. So the question you're asking yourself when you're picking categories and thinking about that, what would someone type to find a book like this? So that can be, I don't know, unreliable narrator. That can be psychological thriller, like enemies to lovers romance. So what you're going to be doing, you're not going to be labeling the book. You're going to be matching your reader behaviors. So when users search, when they go onto a store on the website and they search enemies to lovers fantasy, because that is obviously huge, or World War II historical fiction female lead. So these are the searches that you're going to encounter that the actual users are using when looking for books. The store is going to match the title, subtitle, keywords, and the description. And if your metadata search matches search intent, you will show up higher, you will show up more often. which is going to definitely increase your visibility. So this is why you want to be mindful of this. And also when it comes to keywords, so how do you want to organize your keywords? You want to combine 3 types of keywords. So you want to make sure that you're including genre keywords. So is it cozy mystery? Is it epic fantasy? Is it romance? So you want to make sure you include these. Then you want to make sure that you are including trope or theme keywords. So that can be, I don't know, locked room mystery, very big right now. Enemies to lovers, always popular, very, very pronounced in romantasy lately. Found family, things like that. So you want to include those. And then you want to include audience or intent keywords. So meaning who this is for, what do these clients, these users want? So I don't know, teen fantasy romance, quick read thriller, that kind of thing. So this type of mix is going to give you both reach and precision. So this is the combination that you want to be mindful of. You don't have to guess. You can observe the market. You can go to Amazon or Google Play, Apple Books, not Apple Pay. No, don't do that. Go to Apple Books. Search for your genre, and then look for the top ranking books. Look at their titles. Look at their subtitles. Look at their descriptions. So you will see patterns, and you will, this, for example, you will see repeated phrases. You will see common tropes. You will see wording. So if everyone uses a phrase, a specific phrase or sets of phrases, that's because readers search for it. So you can definitely do that. I'm not saying that it's necessary, but if you need ideas, you definitely can look for that and see what others are doing. Because as I said, this is a huge ecosystem. There are lots of books that are becoming available every day. So getting ideas about what works from others is perfectly fine. You should test and improve. And when I say that you should test and improve, this means that you want to continue monitoring performance after launch. You want to see if identify there are any weak keywords. If there are, remove them. See how discoverable your book is as it is. If, of course, monitor performance, but try to identify what works or what doesn't work. Either way, if you know what doesn't work, you're removing that, replacing it with something else. If you find out what works, you double down on what works. But you need to make sure that you keep track of what's going on. Before we continue, I'm going to take a look at the few questions that we have. Okay, should you include words in your keyword section that appear in your description? If they're relevant, yes, because keywords are going to be very important in how the store is going to place your work. So yes, when it comes to keywords, you definitely want to go for what is the most relevant for your title. My title has my main keywords in it. Do I repeat them in the other areas? For sure. You are going to be mindful of that when you're picking categories, but if they are your main keywords, you want to make sure they're in your description, and you definitely want to include them or version of them in the actual keywords, depending, of course, on what exactly they are. But that is definitely recommended because all of these aspects, all of these components are going to be seen by the stores and be seen by the algorithms. You want to reinforce their strength. So you do want to include them where it's relevant. You said that they are in the title. You want them in your description for sure, and you want them in the keywords section. Again, how many of them and which of them, it's going to depend on the individual book, on the and on the other details. But yes. Okay. So moving on. I just wanted to touch base on the ISBN. It is part of the metadata, but as you know, you are not required to have ISBN for ebooks in most stores. That this also, so ebooks and audiobooks, it's not required. If you decide not to have ISBN, our system is going to assign a PUI, which is a Published Drive Unique Identifier, which is a number that's accepted by most retailers. Again, this is store specific. So if there is a store that you would like to, where you'd like to publish and they require ISBN, you would want to make sure it's included. If you're unsure ahead of time if any of them require it, you can ask us. You can check online. All that information is readily available for each individual store. So as I said, it's not mandatory for ebooks and audiobooks for a huge majority of stores. So what I would like to know is how do you typically look for keywords? There is a number of ways you can go about this. One of these is the publishing assistant that I have mentioned earlier that we have in our system. You can use that. You can see what the others are doing. What are the other authors doing? We can see, you can also start by just reviewing your manuscript. And if this is not your first book, see how it's going to compare to the books that you have already published. You can use AI as well to get ideas for the keywords. What I would say when it comes to the free versions of most widely available AI, they're excellent for ideas, but I wouldn't rely on them fully for final selection. But all of these ideas are an option. So you can definitely look into those. When it comes to keywords, I would make sure that, ahead of time, you check where you compare essentially what you would like to use and how many keywords you can add into the system. And think about that before it comes to the time when you are going to publish. So there is that as well. So, question. Are there any metadata fields in the EPUB that are preserved and passed through unchanged, even if they're not part of the submission form? I mean, if I upload an EPUB with detailed metadata from Sigil, but then manually entered metadata in Publish Drive, which version is ultimately sent to a retailer? The embedded EPUB metadata, the submission metadata, or a combination of both? So ultimately, it is going to be the metadata you submit. So the metadata you fill out in our form. The system, when you upload your EPUB, the system will read the embedded metadata. And if everything is properly structured, some fields are going to be autofilled. Not all of them, but some of them will be pulled directly from the file. These are not going to be finalized. So you will be asked to finalize the metadata that you want to utilize. So if you have something that you want to use, some of it will auto-populate for you. If you want to use something completely different, you will absolutely be able to add that when you fill out the dashboard information. There was one more thing that I wanted to touch base on today. And of course, if you have any more questions, feel free to submit them. Also, if I didn't answer any of your question in full or I misunderstood something, please let me know so I can clarify, because we still have time. So this is not necessarily very completely related to the metadata. This is more regarding what I'm about to say a little bit about the book upload process and the workflow. So regardless of whether you're uploading 1, 5, or 100 books, using a planned workflow is going to make sure you increase efficiency and save time. It also means that it is going to create much less frustration. And I would recommend creating a standardized workflow that you can use for each book you upload. And there are a few steps that you want to make sure that you include. So I would recommend doing your metadata creation before you plan to upload. So by this, I mean that you should plan ahead. You should consider keywords. You should consider categories and look into that. Think about that and have the finalized version before your planned upload. Second of all, very, very important and can ultimately add a lot to your publishing time and frustration levels. You want to make sure that you have enough time to prepare your files for publishing and allow for potential adjustments if there should be any. So by this, I mean, you want to make sure that you have time to review what is required for each individual file. And by that, I'm thinking ebooks or print books or audiobooks. So what are the expectations? Are your files meeting expectations? If you're not sure what certain expectations are, you want to make sure that you address that on time. So you look into that ahead of time. You clarify anything that's not clear ahead of time. You can do that. You can ask our team if you're not sure, if that's perfectly fine. But I would allow enough time for metadata creation and file prep. Once you upload, so once this is finalized, you upload. Your book undergoes book review. Say everything is fine. It gets sent to the stores. After this step, a lot of authors just set it and forget it. It doesn't work like that. I would make sure that I would go and confirm that all of the books are actually live. Each of the stores have their own time frame. This especially when you are approaching holidays. So that is always time where all those big systems like Amazon, Google, Apple, there is much more happening and there are more likely to be delays. So confirm all the books are live. If there is a significant delay, act accordingly. Reach out to our support team. Tell them, okay, book such and such. It should have been live. It hasn't been live. Can you look into this? This is something we can do for you, but you need to track if your books are live. Once they're live, you want to monitor performance. You want to see what's working, if they're out there. You want to search for your book and see what brings it up. Search from incognito mode. Don't search from your account because it is more likely to give you skewed information. See what brings it up, what doesn't bring it up. See how visible it is. See if it sells. Try to identify if there is something, if there are keywords or categories or something that is not working. What is not working, just change, remove it, change it. If it's working, lean in heavily on that. So it's very important that you follow up after the book is published as well. So how does this info compare to what AI recommendations require? So can you please elaborate on the question? What do AI recommendations require? I'm sorry, I'm not. If you can clarify, please. How can AI help authors? So it really depends which area you're looking for help in. So you can utilize AI to suggest keywords. You can get AI to identify trends. So there are things that AI can help with. That being said, obviously there are authors who use AI in their writing. That wasn't the topic of today's webinar, so I'm not sure if that is the area you're interested in. Obviously, this is something that is being done more and more. You can absolutely publish titles that have been created entirely or partly by AI. It's just important that you need to report that. What do you do if your book is not selling after it is live in the store? So, okay, thank you, Jonathan. So if your book is not selling, there is a multitude of things you can do. But one thing, obviously, as we discussed today, metadata is very important to get your book in front of users. But it is in itself, it is not enough. It's important to note that there are tens of millions of titles out there. So I think last time I checked, Amazon.com had something like 40 million book titles in English available. So we are talking about incredibly large number of titles that are available to clients. That means that before you publish your book, I would recommend that you think about the marketing strategy in addition to effective metadata. So who is your audience? How do you reach your audience? When it comes to Amazon, Amazon ads are something I would absolutely recommend. Social media is something I would absolutely recommend. Collaboration with booktubers and book talkers and getting reviews are absolutely essential. So I would definitely look into marketing, because just publishing a book without having some marketing for it is not likely to give you a lot of organic sales, unless you're a very well-established author to begin with. Even then, they have like crazy marketing campaigns. Going back to the question that I read, but I wasn't sure I understood. So to get AI visibility. So Duke, I'm again not sure. So what do you need to get AI visibility? To be recommended by AI to users? Is that what you mean? What software do you use to format your text for publishing? So it really depends on what type of file you're required to upload. When it comes to ebooks, when publishing through Publish Drive, you can either upload EPUB or you can upload docx file. So depending on which file you're uploading, you can use programs that works best. If you're going to be uploading, you're just going to be using Word. be mindful that when you upload it into our system is going to conduct the transformation into EPUB, and you will be asked to review the EPUB. In order to get optimal results, you want to make sure that your doc is properly formatted. There are instructions in our help center specifically about how you need to format it. Yes, I found it. Let me just send you the link to an article in our help center so you can do that. Okay, I'm going to go back to the Duke's question because he clarified. So essentially, how do we make sure that you're very welcome? If you have more questions like that, feel free to shoot. We have some more time. So let me just scroll up back. So how do you increase visibility by AI and the likelihood that AI is going to recommend? So this is not, there is no strategy for this. So when you're asking AI for recommendation, I don't know. It really depends on how you're going to ask your question, what you're going to be asking for. So I would definitely focus. I don't think there is a straightforward answer to that. So I would definitely try to focus on increasing discoverability on more traditional channels, sales channels specifically. The more your book is visible, bought, commented on, and present on the internet in general sense. So the more likely it is that AI is going to consider it relevant to include in answers of this type. But again, it is very, very broad situation in a sense that there is, like I said, there is no a single straightforward answer for that. Any more questions? Also, is there something, since you have been chatty, and I really appreciate that. Thank you for asking questions. Thank you for participating. Are there any specific topics that you would like to hear covered in one of the upcoming webinars? As you know, we have one webinar a month. So typically they are going to be, for the rest of the year, they are going to be on the last Monday of the month. So this one was displaced due to the holidays, but the next one should be a last Monday in April, last Monday in May, etc. Unless there is a major holiday that might cause some rescheduling. But if you are interested in anything specific, you can definitely ask, because ultimately the goal of these webinars is to give you information on topics that you find most relevant for your publishing journey right now. We are trying to stay current and to make sure that we cover topics that are the most relevant ones at the given moment in time, depending on the trends in the publishing industry and everything that encompasses it. We're always happy to hear them. We will work on incorporating some more combined webinars like we did in December, where there would be a demo combined with Q&A. So a colleague of mine would go through the platform functionalities, and then we would go through any questions regardless of the topic. So because that has also shown to be interesting to our users. Will there be a replay? So everyone who has signed up for the webinar should receive the recording probably by end of day today. So about 2-3 hours after the webinar is completed is the typical timeline. Most of the webinars are going to also be uploaded to our YouTube channel, which is public, so you can see those webinars as well, but you will receive a recording for sure, so you don't have to wait for anything to be uploaded. Any more questions? Anything else I can help with? Okay. I hope that you found the webinar beneficial. As I said, the next one will be last Monday in April. I'm not sure about the topic yet, but you will be informed probably a couple of weeks, 10 to 14 days in advance, and you will receive the notifications and instructions if you want to apply. You're more than welcome to join. I really, really thank you for your time. Appreciate that you chosen to join us. If any preferences, any topics you would like us to discuss, let us know. And I'm looking to see as many of you on our next. Have lovely rest of week, everyone. Goodbye.